Women have been conditioned by society to be, act, and think a certain way. Here at Girls IRL, we encourage women to challenge societal norms and embrace their femininity. With that being said, let's get into this week's episode. Oh, they sent me a picture of AC. Oh, my little baby's at daycare. I'm gonna die. Okay, back to the topic at hand. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Girls in Real Life podcast. I am your host, Mariah Clayton. I'm sorry, I was just gushing over a picture of Ace that the daycare just sent me because today is his first day. Oh my God. Like, I cannot believe that he's actually there and not here. This morning I did cry a little bit. And then I also cried after we dropped him off and I was sitting in the car. But I know that it's going to be fine. Like every day it's going to get easier. That's what everybody keeps telling me. And literally we get there and immediately he just wants to get down and start playing with the toys. So we just let him have at it. I stayed for a few minutes just to kind of see like what he was going to do. And he was literally just playing, talking, like being very normal. And I was like, okay, AC, mommy's going to go now. And I like waved bye-bye to him and he waved back to me. And I was just like, oh my gosh. My little man is growing up and he's waving bye-bye to me, telling me that he's going to be okay. So I am doing a lot better than I thought I was going to be doing today. Clearly, I have enough energy and I'm not crying that I'm recording today's podcast episode. So yeah, I wanted to ask you guys if you have noticed anything that's changed a little bit about how I'm writing out the podcast topics, because for the longest I would write like getting real about and then put whatever the topic was going to be. But I feel like lately I've been trying to get away from that format just because like I don't really know if I vibe with it anymore. Like I thought it was cute at first, like she did what she needed to do. It was a cute little time, but I just honestly think like I'm much better off without it. And I like having cuter topics or just like writing out something that's a little bit more interesting, low-key a little bit more clickbaity for like my girls who are new to the podcast. So I want to get them to like click on stuff, and I just think like reading getting real about whatever topic is not really gonna like catch somebody's attention. So I want to do a little bit more attention grabbing topics. So if you see the topics and they look a little bit dramatic, like that is why. Like the routine one, I was like, routines that are going, how to start a routine that's going to change your life. Like it's just so dramatic, but I feel like those are the types of things that most people click on. And then also now that I'm doing YouTube more consistently, you gotta be clickbaity on YouTube. So I'm just gonna like merge it kind of all together and get rid of the getting real about era, because she was cute, she was fun, we enjoyed it, but we're moving on to bigger and better things. Okay, we are elevating, we are growing. And I also stopped doing seasons. I know like for the longest time we were on season 3. I've done like 70 episodes in season 3, but I just think that I don't want to have seasons anymore because I just don't. Like, I don't know. I feel like when I first started my podcast, I wanted things to be done very specifically, and I wanted to have a certain number of episodes per season, and I wanted it to be like very strict almost. But now that I'm like gotten older and I've been in the podcasting game for years, I'm just like, there's no need to have seasons. There's no need to put a limit on how many episodes I can have. There's no need to put a limit on how long I can talk for. Like I can talk for 20 minutes. I can talk for an hour and 20 minutes. Like y'all know how it goes over here. So I'm just honestly giving myself the freedom to kind of change and elevate the podcast as I change and elevate it, and changing it in ways that I think are going to, be better for me and the podcast in the future. So yeah, I just wanted to give y'all that little update because I didn't know if y'all had noticed it or not. But that is all actually very fitting because as you guys could see from the episode, what am I saying right now? As you guys can see from the title of the episode, we are going to be talking about podcasting and how to start a podcast in 2024. I'm giving y'all all my tips, tricks, advice. And yeah, that's literally what today is going to be about. I know this episode is not going to be for everyone, but I've honestly wanted to do this episode for quite some time. And I feel like so many people ask me how to start a podcast, where to start, what to do. And it's just a little overwhelming. Like, I don't know who deemed me the podcasting queen and like knowing all things of podcasting, but you guys always ask me so many questions about my podcast and how I got started and equipment I use and how to do this. And I'm just like, okay, I got you. I'm gonna answer all your questions, hopefully in today's podcast episode. So whenever somebody asks me this question again on my Instagram or my TikTok, I can just literally send them the link to this video and be like, here you go. Everything you need is in here. This is your 2024 podcasting starter guide. But no, I am honored that you guys, ask me your podcasting questions because it makes me feel like I'm doing something right. Like you guys like the quality, you guys like what I'm doing, and you kind of want to get a feel for how I'm doing it. So it is a compliment in and of itself, but I will say that I do not have all of the answers. This is literally just what I'm going to share from my experience and how I've navigated podcasting for these almost past 4 years. So hopefully this is helpful to someone. I'm sorry this is not like my usual content that I usually post. Next week, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming. But since it is a new year and I know a lot of people are interested in starting a podcast, I thought it would be the perfect time to just kind of dive deep into this topic and give the girlies what they want. I honestly have a bunch of notes and I feel like we have a lot to get through. So I'm not even going to share any life updates today. Not that I really have any because I really don't think that I do. Nothing much has changed since the past week that I talked to y'all. So there's really no point. So we're just going to go ahead and dive into the episode for today. My laptop is over here. So if you guys see me looking over here, I'm literally just like going through my notes and the outline that I made for myself. But yes, let's go ahead and get started. Did I say that already? So before I get into how you're going to start your podcast this year, I really want to kind of talk about the intro of podcasting and kind of like how it came to be. And it's so weird because if you think about it, like in my mind, I feel like podcasting just started a few years ago because I literally used to never listen to podcasts. But when I was researching this and I saw that podcasting started in 2004, I was like, dang, you really been around for a long time, like 20 years at this point. Is that right? 2004, 14. Yeah, 20 years. So my girl is almost 21. All right. Like next year, she's going to be turning 21. She's going to turn up for her birthday. But anyways, I'm being silly. So yes, podcasting started in 2004 and it was actually called audio blogging before they coined the term podcasting in 2005. So the following year. So it was really called audio blogging. And basically it was just people doing what they do now, like sharing their lives, sharing their thoughts about music and movies and talking about certain topics, just really creating an audience centered around things that they were passionate about. Podcasting, like listening to podcasting and being a podcaster was already kind of popular, but I feel like it really, really took off and reached new heights in 2020 when the world shut down and everybody was just trying to find something to do. And I feel like a lot of people turned to podcasting. I'm trying to think. I started my podcast in 2020. But mine, not to sound like a pick me, but my idea for a podcast started before the pandemic even hit. So yeah, I was going to start a podcast anyways, if the world shut down or not. So yeah, I'm not in that crowd, but anyways, yeah. So I feel like, during COVID and when everybody was in their house, people were trying to find something to do. And that's really why podcasting took off. It heightened in listeners, it heightened in actual podcasters. So it's boomed into something that I don't think anyone could have ever expected, honestly. And you guys are going to gag at this number that I'm going to share with you. But it says that the global podcasting market size was valued at $18.52 billion US dollars in 2022. And that was 2 years ago. So I'm sure it's already gone up a little bit. But yeah, this is literally an $18.52 billion industry. Okay. So there is money out here to be made in podcasting. There is room for people in podcasting. And that's what I think I like the most about podcasts, or even just social media in general. Like there's room for everyone. Like, you can literally have something so niche and so specific and find your corner of people and build a growing, thriving community. And it is just like the coolest thing ever. Podcasting is very special in a sense that, like, you don't have to show your face. Like, this was one of the few platforms that you were able to just kind of like use your voice and talk to people and not be so concerned about your looks and your appearance and, you know, the whole social media aspect of it. And I know now that that has drastically changed. You know, we see video podcasts all the time. Hello, I am a video podcast. You see, you know, podcasts having websites and podcasts having social medias and all of that stuff, because I feel like it's just grown with the times. You know, social media is such a big thing and it's really how we reach people. So if you're not utilizing socials in order to promote your platform, then like you're kind of doing it wrong. But there was once a time when it was not that serious, you know, like it really was just a time for you to just sit in front of a mic, pour your heart out, upload it, and then like let that be that. But as with everything in life, things change, things develop, and this is where we are today. So I'm gonna get into my tips on how you're going to start your podcast in 2024 in today's world. Okay, not in 2004, we're not there. But really to kind of help you understand and know the ins and outs of how you're going to be able to have a successful podcast this year or in the coming years. If you're watching this at a little bit of a later time, like in 2 years or so, I don't know, I'm talking to the future people. I'm being silly today. All right, so the first thing that I have is you need to ask yourself these 3 questions before you even like get into the equipment that you need, softwares, socials, like any of that. These are the 3 questions that you need to ask yourself and that you need to deeply think about before you even step foot into trying to record an episode, okay? So the first question is going to be, why do you want to start a podcast? And I feel like this is such a simple question, but you really do need to be honest with yourself in answering this, because it's what's going to help guide you the rest of the way through this journey. I started my podcast because I wanted to help inspire women and create a community of women to help them embrace their authentic selves, to talk about topics that made them feel less alone, to allow me a space to transparently and vulnerably share my experiences and my stories so that other young women can listen to me and relate to something I'm saying or see themselves in me or whatever the case may be, right? I really wanted to be an inspiration to a community of women in order to empower them to be their very best selves, in a nutshell. But that might not be your why. Maybe you want to bring awareness to true crime. That is why a lot of the true crime podcasts are out there. Maybe you want to educate people on a certain topic that you're super passionate about that people don't talk about enough. Or maybe you want to start your podcast because you just want to make a little bit of money. And hey, like, there is nothing wrong with whatever your why is. I just think that you need to have a very definitive why so that you can then proceed with how you need to proceed going forward. But yes, figure out your why. And then the next question I want you guys to ask yourself is, what do you want to talk about? You can't have a podcast if you don't have nothing to talk about. So you really need to sit with yourself and be like, what is important to me? What am I passionate about? What do I want to discuss? And again, this doesn't have to be anything super profound. You know, there are podcasters out there who literally, you know, review movies and review music and give advice and all of these different types of things. But maybe you want to talk about something a little bit more serious and educational. Maybe you want to talk about, shucks, I don't know, airplanes. Like, literally, you can talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. And it's beautiful because you get to go in as much detail as possible. Like, you literally get to expound on so many different subjects and topics and things that are happening in the world. You can dive super deep into them and go on and on and on and on and on. But you just have to make sure that what you're talking about is aligning with your why, because I feel like those two things kind of coexist with one another. Like, as you guys can see, a lot of my topics are centered around self-development, self-discovery, self-reflection, trying to expand your mind to get out of these societal standards and expectations. Like, those are what, my topics center around. And those are the things that I talk about because I want to empower women. I want to help you challenge societal norms and live an authentic life. So, of course, all of my topics are going to be centered around that type of vibe. So, you have to figure out what you want to talk about, what's important to you, what do you want to waste an hour or however long you want to talk of your breath on. And then the last question that I want you guys to think about and answer is, who is your target audience? Because these are the people that you're trying to reach. These are the people that you're trying to connect to. And again, the beautiful thing about podcasting is there is a niche for everything. So you are going to find your audience. You just have to put in the work to do so. Don't think that you're the only one out here who likes weird things or wants to talk about certain things, because that is definitely not the case. And once you find your target audience, then you have literally found your people. You have found your like-minded people who think like you, who want to learn the same things as you, who want to, do the same things in life as you. It's a beautiful community to be a part of when you truly find your tribe and your people. So obviously for me, my target audience is women, and specifically I like to think of my age range of women from 18 to 35. I feel like that is a wide range, but I'm in my late 20s, okay? And I feel like I have a lot of advice that I could give to teenagers who are entering their 20s, but then I feel like I also have insight that I could give to older women who are in their early 30s or mid 30s and kind of help them maybe see something that they never thought about before. So I feel like I am in that perfect little middle ground of being able to relate to both sides of my spectrum. So yeah, my target audience, obviously women, but your target audience might be men, or your target audience might be people who love cars, or your target audience might be women in STEM or nurses or coffee lovers, and you do coffee reviews. I don't know. It can literally be whatever you want. But it all starts with these three questions. Why do you want to start a podcast? What do you want to talk about? And who are you talking to? Who is your target audience? And then once you figure that out, now you're ready to dive deep into the podcasting world and get started. And this is where the fun begins. This is where you're coming up with things like your name, trying to think of a concept for the cover art, all of the fun creative side of it. This is where you get to do that. So starting with your name, obviously every podcast needs a name. Some people are very blunt and straightforward with what it is. Who can I think of that has a very blunt and straightforward podcast title? Think of your news podcastings. I don't listen to those, so I can't think of any names, but I feel like those would be very straightforward, today's news. But then you also have the fun creative ones. I feel like mine is kind of cute. Girls in Real Life, Girls IRL. I also listen to What We Said, and it's two best friends and they're literally just talking this is what we said, this is our thoughts. What's another one? Girly Popcast by Ali Yost. She actually took that. She calls her followers Girly Pops, and so she literally just Girly Popcast as the title of her podcast. Yeah, it's super cute. But yeah, you get to come up with a fun, cute, maybe even punny name. Your name can literally be whatever you want it to be. It can be as creative as you want it to be, or it can be as simple as you want it to be. But I think that the true magic that happens is your podcast cover art. This is what people are going to see. It's kind of like when you're going in the library and trying to find a book to read, and they say don't judge a book by its cover, but everybody judges a book by its cover. I'm telling you right now, everybody is going to judge your podcast based off of what that cover photo is and what they see when they open that app. So it might seem very not important, but I promise you it is. Going to my podcast photo cover art, I absolutely love it, although I do want to update it maybe this year or next year. But when I was thinking of my podcast cover art and the concept behind it, I really wanted to be able to showcase the struggles that society is forcing on women. And if you look at the podcast cover art, you can see a Botox needle. You can see a straightener coming in. What else did I have? It was one more thing. I can't remember. Oh my gosh, I can't even think of my own little podcast cover art. Hold on. Oh, it's a makeup brush. Yeah, so I put all of those in there because I'm these are the societal pressures that I'm feeling, that I'm trying to get away from. And so I really wanted to portray that in my podcast cover art so that when women look at it, they're like, oh, that's interesting. Like you can see she looks a little bit scared on her face and she has this straightener reaching in and she has these Botox needles coming in. And like, what does that mean? You know, like it's almost kind of like, what is she talking about really? But I really just wanted to kind of portray the societal pressures that women feel in, you know, in the world. So that's my podcast cover art. But you can think of your own podcast cover art concept and really make it as creative as you want. And then obviously get someone to shoot it for you, whether you have a photographer friend, whether you shoot it on your iPhone, whether you create it in Canva if you don't want to have your face in it and you just want it to be cute little words. Like it can honestly be whatever you want, but just know that people are going to judge you and your podcast from what they see. And what they see is either going to push them to want to click on your podcast or be like, I don't really want to listen to that, you know? So it really is important. It's kind of vain. It's kind of like, oh, we shouldn't care about appearances. Don't judge a book by its cover. But everybody does it, and I'm just being honest. So you got to make it something that's going to be cute, something that's going to be appealing, and something that people are actually going to want to click on. All right, the next step in planning your podcast, you need to figure out your format, okay? Your format can look honestly however you want it to look. I'm going to say that so many times. Like your podcast can look however you want it to look. But formatting, let's just say for me as example, my format obviously are solo podcast episodes. Sometimes I have guests come in. Sometimes I do things myself. Sometimes I have a script. Sometimes, actually, I never have a script. What am I talking about? Sometimes I have an outline and sometimes I don't have an outline. Like today I have an outline. I literally outlined everything I wanted to talk about. I have little bullet points, maybe some little lines of something I for sure want to say, but I never have anything word for word scripted out. Like I'm not reading anything because it just allows me to kind of like be free flowing, have my thoughts going, and it just sounds a lot more, I don't know. It just sounds more me, you know? But your format can be something different. Like maybe you have a true crime podcast and you want to script all of your episodes. I listen to tons of true crime podcasts that script all their episodes and just read from the script like a story. Maybe you have a storytelling podcast where maybe you like read books or you read, I don't know, news articles. I don't know where these examples are coming from in my mind, but yeah, maybe you're doing a podcast by yourself. Maybe you have a guest every single week and you're talking about very specific topics. Maybe it's you and your best friend. Maybe it's you and your 3 best friends. Like, I don't know. You just really need to figure out your format for your podcast and how that's going to work for you. The next thing you need to have planned out is your frequency. So how many times are you going to upload? For example, I upload weekly. I upload once a week. Some people that might be a little bit too much. So maybe you want to upload bi-weekly. Some people I know upload twice a week. Like I listen to a podcast, the Glow Up Secrets podcast, and she uploads every Monday and Thursday, like on the dot, like clockwork. I cannot. I don't think I would ever be able to do that. But some people out there do. So you really need to figure out what your frequency is going to be, what works best for you and your schedule, and all that good stuff. Just don't be like them once a month, people. Okay, because nobody's gonna listen to your podcast if you only upload it once a month. I'm just saying. And then the last thing that you can probably plan out are your topics. And this is something that I used to do before I had A's, but now I just kind of go week by week and it just is what it is. But I used to actually sit down and write out all the dates that I was going to have a podcast go live. So literally I would just write out all the months every Monday in the year. And I would fill in like what I was going to talk about that week. So I would literally have a full bird's eye view of like what my year of podcasting was going to look like. Now this is a little bit extreme. I'm sure a lot of people do this, but you don't have to do this. You can take it week by week, like how I've been doing for the past few months, or you can be anal about it and really like plan out all of your topics. Maybe you want to plan out your topics quarterly. Maybe you want to plan out your topics monthly, like whatever works for you. I just think it's really beneficial and helpful if you know what you're going to be talking about before you talk about it, especially if you need to do things like research research or get a guest in order. All of those little tiny things that happen behind the scenes. You really just want to make sure that you are prepared for that. When you're planning your podcast in these beginning stages, this is really where you get to truly define like what your podcast is going to be and how to really make it unique to you. You don't want to try and be like somebody else. Obviously, you can take inspiration from other people and you can have the same concepts like an advice-based show or a true crime-based show or a review-based show, but you really want to take the time in your planning process to really make your podcast as unique to you as you can, because people don't want to hear the same things over and over again about the same topics. Like, really figure out, how am I going to stand out? How am I going to make this unique? How am I going to make people want to keep coming back and listening for more? And how am I going to separate myself from other people who are already in this lane? So yeah, that's the first step of planning your podcast. Now we're going to get into the essential equipment and software that you're going to need in order to have like a quality podcast. These are things that you're going to want to invest in to make sure that even though you're just starting out, you're still going to have that quality that you're looking for. And I will say, like, obviously there are some very expensive equipment, but there's also some lower level equipment that works just as good and is great for starters. And I'm going to try and give you guys as many recommendations as I can. But like I said, I'm not an expert. And also, if this is something that you're passionate about, like, you need to do your own research as well. Don't just take it from the horse's mouth. Like, go out and do the work yourself. But I am going to try and give y'all as much information as possible. So the first thing we're going to talk about is microphones, which I think is probably the most important piece of your podcast equipment, because this is literally what you're going to be talking into. This is the audio that people are going to be hearing. And you want it to be something that is quality and crisp and clear for your listeners. Now, when I was first starting my research on podcasts 4 years ago, back in 2019, 2020, I was very overwhelmed by what I found about microphones, because if you're not a tech girly, then a lot of this stuff is going to be like a foreign language to you, like it was to me. So when I was researching microphones and there was all of these different types that came up, I was literally just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I am overwhelmed. I want to shut my laptop and I don't want to do this anymore. I want to turn back. I want to quit. But I didn't quit. And now I can help you not go through that same crisis that I did. So we're going to go through a few different types of mics. I have 4 here, and I'm just going to briefly run down. Like, I'm not trying to get too technical into this, but I really just want to give you guys the knowledge. Okay. So the first type of microphone that there is a condenser mic. This is like a very sensitive mic. These are the mics that most musicians use because they really pick up a lot of detail. So if you have like multiple instruments going on in the background, you're going to be able to hear every single one, because a condenser mic really just picks up like everything in the room. Like, if you freaking tap your big toe, a condenser mic will probably pick that sound up. So I will not say that this type of mic is ideal for podcasting, just because it does pick up so much noise. So if you are in a space where you're not really controlling like your audio that much, like you don't have carpets laid down and you're not canceling out the echo and all that kind of stuff, then I would not suggest a condenser mic. It is a very powerful mic, but it's a little bit too powerful for podcasting. So the next type of mic is a dynamic mic, and this is the opposite of a condenser mic. So this is one that is not as sensitive. It's good for situations where the source is really close to the microphone, aka podcasting. So this, actually the one that I'm talking on, is a condenser mic. If I was to go like really far away, it would be really difficult for you to hear what I'm saying. But when I come back up close, then you're obviously able to hear me a lot more clearly. This type of mic, obviously it doesn't pick up as much of that detail. It's not going to pick up so much of the surrounding noise. So if there was like a garbage truck that passed by, I would probably be able to hear it through my headphones, but you wouldn't be able to hear it as I'm talking to you through this microphone. So it's not going to pick up any of that excess noise. That's condenser versus dynamic. Now we're going to get into USB versus XLR. So obviously everybody knows what a USB is. USB mics plug right up into your computer. This mic is a USB mic, but it is also an XLR mic. So an XLR mic, it basically needs like additional equipment. So you can't just plug it right into your computer. You're going to need something called an audio interface. And it's basically what you plug into it to record the sound and the audio. So like I said before, this microphone is a USB and an XLR. So I have the option to hook this up straight to my computer, which is what I typically do. Or I have the option to get an audio interface and hook it up into that. Now, some people might be wondering, why would you want to hook it up to an audio interface if you can just hook it up to your laptop? And you would be correct in asking that question. Like, hooking it up to your laptop is just a lot more convenient. You need less equipment, especially if you already have a laptop at hand. Like, if you only have to buy one piece of equipment, do that, because it honestly, I think it sounds the same. Like, my quality is good quality. Now, I do think that audio interfaces kind of help elevate your quality just a little bit, but I don't think that it's that big of a difference to where I feel like, oh my gosh, I need an audio interface to record. And we're going to get into audio interface a little bit later. So I'll talk a little bit more in detail about an audio interface and what that is and how it can be beneficial to you depending on your format for your podcast. But we're going to move on here to a few microphone recommendations that I have for you guys. And these are all mics that I've personally used, and you can go back and listen to some podcast episodes if you want to see how it sounds. But there's also people who do mic reviews on YouTube, and you can probably just watch their videos. But anyways, the first mic that I'm going to recommend is the Samson Q2U. This was my very first podcasting mic. I absolutely love this mic. It was my baby, okay? She was like $60 off of Amazon. It's a USB mic, so it hooks right up to your computer. And the audio on this mic is so crisp and clear. And like, if Justin did not buy me this mic, I would probably still be using my Samson Q2U because it is just that good. Like, I did not feel the need to upgrade or get something different. I just had opportunities that were presented to me that allowed me to get something differently. So obviously I got it. But that is a great mic. I don't know how much it is now because I bought that mic like 3 years ago, and inflation has probably caused it to be a little bit closer to $100. But I remember when I bought it, it was about $60. The next mic, and probably one of the most popular mics, is the Blue Yeti. I also used a Blue Yeti. The only reason I had a Blue Yeti is because I had a friend who used to use it for like web streaming, like games or whatever, and they were like, I don't use this anymore, do you want it? And I was like, yes. Again, this is another USB mic, so it hooks right up to the computer. I actually have it right here in front of me. This is Justin's, but this is what the Blue Yeti looks like. Again, another great mic. I don't have really any complaints about it. It's a good mic. And then the last mic recommendation that I have for you guys is obviously the one that I'm using right now. This is the podcast. Oh my gosh. This is the Shure MV7 podcasting mic. Again, this is a USB and an XLR mic, and I absolutely love this mic. You get to control the gain, you get to control the volume in your ears. I really like it. Like, I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's a good mic. All of these mics were good mics. So I think that you just need to find something that works for you, find something that you think sounds good to you, and then just use that until an opportunity presents itself to upgrade to something better. Oh my gosh. I've already been talking for like 35 minutes and we're not even halfway done. Okay, the next thing that you'll probably need is a boom arm, which if you watch a few of my older podcasting videos, then you would see like I'm not holding my mic in those videos. I have it on a boom arm, and the only reason I don't have it on the boom arm is because we're moving and I don't have nowhere to put my boom arm. So yeah, anyways, y'all don't care about that. But you might want to get a boom arm so that way your mic is just here in your face and you don't have to hold it with your hands. But some people like to hold it with their hands. Completely up to you, personal preference. Again, not an expense that is absolutely needed, but something that you might need to know if you want that. Headphones are also optional. I honestly just put mine on because I think they make me look cooler and I like them. These are just Beats. They're not anything special. Obviously, you can get some cheaper ones off of Amazon, but I really just wanted some cute ones, and this is what I went with. All right, audio interfaces. Again, this is an extra piece of equipment if you're going to go with an XLR mic. This is something that you're plugging your mic into, so you'll also need SD cards to go in the audio interface. But if you have a group podcast or you have more than one person that you're going to be podcasting with in the same room, then the audio interface might be the best thing for you, because you can hook up multiple mics to the interface and all of y'all have your different your own audio sound wave. What is it called? Your own audio. I don't know what it's called, but yeah, you get what I'm trying to say. All of you are going to have your own audio. All right, now we're going to get into recording softwares. So this is like what you're actually going to be using to record your podcast on. Currently, I'm using QuickTime, which is literally something that I have embedded in my MacBook, which means it is free, okay? You don't have to pay for it. Another thing that's free with your MacBook is GarageBand. I know some people who record their podcasts in GarageBand also. So if you have like an Apple product computer, obviously I would go this route. But there are other recording softwares that you could pay for if you wanted to have that option. I don't know much about them because I didn't do much research on them because I don't use them. But if you wanted to go that route, then obviously you have that choice as well. But one other thing that I wanted to talk about at this point in the video with recording software was different platforms that you can use in order to record your podcast if you're having a remote guest. Okay, so if you're having somebody that you want to talk to or interview and they're not in your state or your city, and you need to have a virtual interview with them, then I use a website called, what is it called? Riverside. It's called Riverside, and it's basically like an online podcast studio. It's pretty cool. It allows you and your guests to record separate audio tracks. You're able to hook up your camera so that you can get like good quality for yourself anyways. Yeah, it's really just a cool space that you can go to and record episodes with your guests in a professional manner. But if you don't really care about, being professional or having a show, like, you can do Zoom. I used to do Zoom interviews all the time before I started paying for Riverside. You can also do like Google Meet. Any of these like virtual meeting platforms will work just as well. You can hook up your mic and use your mic. I'm sure you can hook up your camera and use your camera. But for me, I liked Riverside. When I heard about it and I saw the things that I could do with it, I was like, this is cool for me. So that is what I use. But obviously you do have to pay for it, and the other things are free with limitations. Like Zoom, you only get 30 free minutes or something, or 40 free minutes. And then I don't know anything about the other ones because I don't really use them, like Google Meet and stuff like that. But obviously those are options as well. Okay, editing softwares. Let's go ahead and get into this. So I use iMovie to edit my video and audio, which obviously is just something that, again, comes on my MacBook, so I do not have to pay for it. CapCut is also, I think, a good option because they have a desktop version, and they also have a specific like podcasting editor version. So I would look into CapCut. Obviously they have a free version or you can pay for it. And then they have the big dogs like Adobe and Final Cut Pro that cost hundreds of dollars. So if you don't already have those platforms, then I would not suggest them. Like, you don't need them. You can find something that is going to be way cheaper or even free. But for me, when I'm editing, I do have to align my audio to my video because I'm not using the audio that's from my camera. I'm using the audio that's coming from QuickTime on my computer. So I do have to like link that up. But once I do that, the editing process is pretty easy. I'm not going to go into how I edit because then we will literally be here for like 20 more minutes and y'all don't want that. But you can learn how to edit, and I'm sure you probably already know how to edit, so I don't need to dive into that. The next thing that you're going to need is called a hosting site, okay? This is a platform that basically stores and distributes your podcast episodes to all of these different directories like Apple, Spotify, Google Play, all the things, okay? Now, if you're like me and you literally have zero clue about podcasting, and because I don't know, like you just had no idea, I thought that you record and then your podcast just kind of magically appears on Apple and Spotify and all of these streaming platforms, but that is not the case at all, okay? You need something that's called an RSS feed, All right, stay with me. An RSS feed is a URL that links your podcast episodes to these podcast directories. So I like to think of it like a digital footprint for your podcast. You can't upload to Apple, you can't upload to Spotify, you can't upload to any directory without having an RSS feed. And the easiest way to get an RSS feed is through your hosting site. So that is why your hosting site is so important, because it's doing all the hard work for you. It's creating you an RSS feed. It's distributing your episodes to any directory that you want. It's going to provide you analytics on like how many downloads that you're getting on your episodes. It offers features like monetization through like sponsorships or whatever. There's a bunch of pros to having a hosting site, okay? So you need to make sure that you have a good one, and you need to make sure that you are paying for your hosting site. This is the only time I'm going to tell you, yes, you have to do this. You have to spend money on this, because I know that a lot of people are like, oh, I can just use Anchor and have my podcast on there for free. Baby, ain't nothing free in this life, okay? Even if they say it's free, it is not free. If you're going to use a free platform like Anchor, you have to realize that, one, you're probably going to have limited lengths to your podcast episodes, because they're probably only going to let you upload like 30-minute episodes. You don't actually own your content when you're uploading it to a free platform. So that's another thing in and of itself. And then if your podcast were to blow up and you were on a hosting site like Anchor for free, they can literally take up to like 30% of what you're making off of your podcast. So hear me when I say, if y'all don't hear nothing else, stay away from Anchor, stay away from those free podcasting hosting sites, and invest in a good hosting site, okay? I use Buzzsprout. It is probably one of the cheapest ones that you're going to be able to find. I think the basic plan is like $12 or something a month, but literally you get a set amount of hours that you can upload a month. I have the 4-hour plan, because most of my episodes are an hour long, and I upload probably 4 a week because there's 4 weeks in a month. So that's just the plan that I have, but you can pick whatever plan works for you, whatever plan is in your budget. But I love Buzzsprout. Like I said, they host all of your stuff, they distribute it, they give you the analytics. I can monetize my podcast through there. It's not a lot of money, okay? I think I've probably made like $13 for my podcast in the past year from Buzzsprout, but it's $13 more than what I had, okay? So yeah, definitely research and look at your hosting sites. There are a bunch out there. I think there's like 30 plus podcast hosting sites out there. So research them, make sure you're picking the one that's best for you. But just make sure that you're paying for it, okay? Because it's gonna pay off for you in the long run. All right, and then the last piece of equipment and software that we're gonna talk about is camera and lights. And obviously this is only if you're going to be doing video for your podcast, which I highly suggest that you do. You know, I just feel like you can repurpose it so much more than just audio. But I'm not even gonna dive into that. But I am filming my podcast right now on my Sony ZV-E10. I love this camera. I got it 2 years ago. I like this one because I can change out the lens. I have a flip screen, so I'm literally looking at myself right now, and then it films in 4K. So yeah, I love this camera. And then I also have 2 soft boxes right here, one here and one there, just to kind of help give me a little bit more light. And I'm also filming in front of a natural lighted window. Okay, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore at this point. I've been talking for so long. But yes, if you want to have like good quality content, then I would suggest investing in a camera and maybe some lights. I honestly don't think that it really matters what kind of camera you have. The lighting probably matters more than the camera. So even if you want to just use your iPhone and film on the back camera, like your iPhone has great quality, so it's good. You just need to invest in some good lighting. So get you some soft boxes, get you a ring light, get you one of those like hard lights. I don't even know what they're called, but you can get them from Amazon. Y'all see all the people talking about them on TikTok, so you know what to do. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking so fast because I still have a little bit left to get through, but we're almost done, okay? I promise. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to promote your podcast and how to monetize your podcast. And I feel like I'm not qualified enough to talk about the monetization part because I still haven't fully monetized my podcast yet, but I do just want to give you guys some like basic information. But first, we're going to talk about promoting your podcast, and the easiest way to do that is obviously through social media. You need to make sure that your podcast has an Instagram page, a TikTok page, maybe a Facebook page. I don't have a Facebook page, but if you want to have a Facebook page, you can have a Facebook page. Have all of the things, okay? Because really, like, social media is one of the biggest ways that people are finding new podcasts to listen to. It's the fastest way to gain traction, to get people to see and hear about the things that you're talking about. And as long as you're putting in the work and the effort to like grow your social media platforms, then I think your podcast will grow as well, because a lot of people don't just search on the podcast app to try and find podcasts. They find them from YouTube, they find them from TikTok or from Instagram. So if you're really implementing like going hard on those platforms, then I think it will just organically grow your listeners, if you do it for, long enough, if you stay in it for the long haul. All right, the next way that you can promote your podcast is through guest collaborations. So this is something I feel like I don't really do too much of this, but I do kind of strategically try and pick my guests in order to get more people to see my podcast, if that makes sense. Like, I want people who have a good, healthy following as well when they come on my show, because when I tag them in the videos and I tag them in the promo and they repost it, obviously their followers are probably going to want to hear what they have to say on my podcast. So sometimes I feel like I'm really picky about who I'm bringing on versus who I'm not. And it really just depends on the topic, because if I know somebody personally that like, I want to talk about this with you, then yes, I'm going to talk about that. But if I know somebody who has a big following on social media and I try and reach out to them and like try and get them on the show, like, I'm going to do that as well, because you got all these followers and I want them to listen to my show. So that's just easy promotion for you if you're able to get somebody who has a lot of solidified followers already, because that episode will probably be one of your most popular episodes. All right, getting into monetization. Okay, I'm going to talk about 4 ways that you can monetize from your podcast, and then we're going to wrap this up. Okay, so the first way that you can monetize your podcast is through sponsorship. And this is where advertisers pay you a certain amount of money to promote their product in your show. Now, I feel like there's a lot of factors when it comes to getting sponsors for your podcast. Like, if you have a management company, then obviously they already have a roster of brands that they work with and they can just push you out to those brands. So if you have a management company, then yeah, it's probably easy. But obviously if you don't, you can, promote yourself, like find emails and even go through Instagram DMs, social media DMs, and just shoot your shot and see what you can get. But also, I think another factor of this is how many downloads that you have, because if you only have like 20 downloads per episode, then that's really not a lot of incentive for a brand to see the value in why they should, promote their product on your podcast. So you want to make sure that you have a healthy, good amount of podcast downloads per week that you can then show to the brand to be like, look, this is how many downloads I'm getting per week. This is how you're going to get your return on investment. And this is why you should work with me. So another element to this is going to be your CPM. So this means your cost per mile, which is basically like how much you're going to get paid per 1,000 downloads for your podcast. So you do not get paid for every single podcast download, okay? You get paid by the thousands. So if you only have like 200 podcast downloads per episode, then obviously like most brands are not going to want to work with you, just because like there's no point when they could literally work with podcasters that are getting 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 podcast downloads per episode. And just think about the people who are getting millions, like they're making bank. Okay. So this is how this works. You have a set rate for 1,000 podcast downloads, like per 1,000 podcast downloads. So let's say that set rate is $25 and you on average have 3,000 podcast downloads per episode. Multiply 25 by 3,000. Okay, I'm gonna give you a second. Let me know what number you got. It's $75,000. Okay, and this is where the big podcasters make their money, is through sponsorships. Okay, because when you have 10,000 downloads per episode, you're literally getting paid like so much money. It's unfathomable. And most CPM rates are like from $10 to $200. So just imagine if you're charging $200 per 1,000 downloads and you have like 10,000 downloads, like you're making $2 million. Like it's actually insane. And this is why podcasting is a $1 billion industry, because there's money out there to be made, but you really have to be like a big major podcaster in order to even see an inkling of that money. So that is why sponsorships are really, really hard for small podcasters like myself who don't have that solidified download number. Like I got a good chunk, okay? I'm not gonna lie, but it ain't 1,000. So we still got some ways to go before we can get there. But that was just like an example for you to see how sponsorships work and how CPM works and all of that kind of stuff. The next way that you can monetize your podcast is through direct support links. So this is where your listeners, donate you money whenever they listen to your podcast. So you can do this by adding in your Cash App or your Venmo or whatever platform you decide to use in the podcast description of your episode, so that people know like when they click on this, they can send you money and donate to you X, Y, and Z. Now, I've personally never done this before because I don't know, I'm kind of weird about asking money from people, but I know a lot of podcasters who have direct support links in their bio, the description of the episode, whatever the case may be, so that their listeners can help support them by donating money. So, I mean, maybe I could do this, but also at the same time, like I don't want to. But if you want to, like I'm not shitting on this at all. Like get your money however way you can. But for me personally, I don't want to, but I wanted to include it in here because it is a way for you to monetize your podcast. Oh, I said I had 4 ways to monetize. I only got 3. So the last way that you're going to be able to monetize your podcast is through complimentary products, aka merch. So this is where you create like products that are related to your podcast and you sell them to your listeners so that then you can pocket that money. I have done merch before. I've done merch twice. So yeah, twice. I did it once like way back in 2020 or maybe 2021. And then I did a merch drop in 2022. So I've dabbled in merch. Merch is fun. I love designing merch. I want to do more merch, but designing merch and producing merch is like a whole nother beast of a thing that you're going to have to learn about. And I'm not getting into it because I've already been here for an hour. But if you are interested in that, then you need to do your research on that because there are obviously ways to do that. But it can be a little bit tricky if you don't really know where to start. So those are the 3 ways that you can make money: sponsorships, direct support links, and merch. Speaking of merch, okay, let me plug myself a little bit right here because I do still have some merch on the website, girlsirlpod.com. We have sweatsuits, we have hats, we have shirts, super cute for the girlies that like pink, although the hat is neutral. But yeah, if you guys are interested in the merch, go check out the website because I love the merch. It is my favorite. I wear it all the time and I cannot wait until I create something new and different, but I'm still sitting on some of these things. So if you guys want them, please take them off my hands because I want to sell them. I want to get rid of them. I don't want to have boxes of merch here. But yeah, anyways, that's where I'm going to end this episode today. I told y'all we were going to be here for a little while. I'm so sorry. I know this episode is not for everyone, but if you made it this far, then I know that you are serious about starting your podcast. And I hope that I was able to help you in some way, shape, or form, give you a little bit of information that you need in order to get started. The last thing that I want you guys to take away from this episode, if you are a future podcaster or wannabe podcaster, is that podcasting is a journey, okay? This is not something that's going to happen overnight. If you think YouTube is bad, just wait until you get into podcasting, okay? It's a whole nother beast of a world out here. It is slow growth. It is a true hard grind, but it is the most rewarding. Okay. Like I said at the beginning, you really create a community of people that is your tribe, that support you, that are like minded people. And it is so beautiful to be able to see like what you can create just from using your voice. So, in my mind, it is definitely worth it. The grind is worth it. You know, along the way, you'll be able to figure out what works versus what doesn't work. What does your audience align with? What do they like? What do they not? It truly is a journey, and you're going to learn a lot of things along the way. So don't get discouraged because it can only get better from here. So, anyways, I'm going to go now. This was an hour-long episode about podcasting, all right? I'm so sorry, but I had to get this out. Y'all be asking me the questions. I got to give you the answers. But if you guys are feeling nice, go ahead and please leave me a podcast review if you're listening on Apple. Go ahead and give me 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify. And obviously, if you're on Instagram, not Instagram, oh my God. If you are on YouTube, subscribe and give me a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. But yeah, while you're at it, you can go follow the TikTok and the Instagram account. But anyways, I'm done. All right. I love y'all so much. I hope you have a great Monday, a great week, and I will talk to you in my next episode. Bye.